start by saying thank you for just taking this class and being open-minded to what everyone has to say. Mindfulness and meditation, which I'll get into more, is very new to me, but has been very prominent in how I live my life. So I was very excited to make this presentation. My topic is mindfulness and its relationship to nature. And I think that the parallels are pretty strong. However, we may see meditation, mindfulness used synonymously, and nature as a pretty abstract relationship. That little circle that you see there is called a Zen circle by my monastery. And you take one paintbrush, dip it in ink, and do a full circle. It's supposed to represent the harmony between mind and body that can do something as complete as a circle. Everything's a metaphor, right? And so I thought it was kind of a good poster child for what I'm going to talk about, because the geological systems right outside our door and the internal systems that we have within our body are mirrors for each other. And I hope to prove that today with my presentation. So when we think about living in a city and going to college, there's a lot of noise that's generated within our minds or literally within our classrooms and busy streets. Meditation and mindfulness has been a way for not only me, hopefully you guys as well, to, I don't want to say escape, but to remember the equilibrium that can be achieved when we take time to be still and silent, and if we can, do that outside. So, now to my journey. That's me. So I just wanted to kind of give a personal anecdote because I think that's pretty powerful when trying to share someone the importance of a concept. So, like I said, 2 years ago, I had different ailments, mentally and physically, and when I was in University of Missouri, I joined a meditation club, and everything changed for me from that point. Now I'm the vice president of the meditation club in U of H, and it's pretty great. And yeah, so learning about the history of meditation and mindfulness and applying it into the reality of our environment has been the process that I think can be sustained for an entire lifetime. And I'd like to go to the root of everything, if we can. We'll get one note real quick. And kind of get a good history on where this all started and how mindfulness and meditation has been such a transformative concept, secular or religious, for our generation. As we've been saying with Irene's presentation, the newer generation and younger people are very open-minded to the even thought of transformative properties of meditation and mindfulness. So I'm sure some of you guys may recognize this young man. That is Siddhartha. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. He is who we now know today as Shakyamuni Buddha. And the reason why I use him, once again, I'm not sure if it's on this slide, but is not to draw inherently a religious context, but just to, I suppose, remind the audience that Buddha did become enlightened sitting underneath the Bodhi tree for 49 days. And so I'd like to imagine just for a second, if we rethink Buddha in kind of maybe this lifetime with the busy cities and everything, and you know, do we really think that that kind of noise and constant distraction would be a healthy environment to maybe achieve the state he, you know, was told to have achieved? So, yes, and I've got some great research here from a lovely study done in 2016 about how psychological well-being can be tied to how much time we spend in nature, and also that the interconnectedness between the self and our observable connectedness with the environment around us has definitely been tested by, reputable scientists, and it's not all inherently, as my grandparents like to say, hippie mumbo jumbo. There has been many studies on this, and I just like to use the religious kind of symbol also mirrored with a study to prove that this is both something for secular and spiritual discussions to include. So how many of you have seen the symbol before? Yeah, we got 2. Okay. That's like half the class. So that is the Om or Om symbol. And it is rooted in Hinduism. But if you remember, a lot of mindfulness practice and meditation practices, from what I've learned in my background, is also taken away from yogic practices and Hinduism as well. And so the interesting thing about that symbol is that it is pretty synonymous with fields of yoga and transcendental meditation in that sphere. But when you think about the origin of it, and it's supposedly the frequency in which the universe has been recorded to vibrate at, and it's beautiful and poetic, but I think it's really important to remember how many millions of people practicing Hinduism, yoga, and transcendental Zen, Chan meditation, use that symbol without maybe even remembering that it has a connection to the cosmos at large. So, I mean, I've seen girls walking with little tattoos of this. I've seen different cheap, necklaces and things, and it's become pretty much a commodity nowadays. But if you remember the origins and the story of Buddha and the symbol of Om, it all comes back to the unified environment in which we ourselves stem from. And I think that's very important to keep in mind when one is trying to attain higher levels of meditation or just trying to impart mindfulness on a daily practice, which can be very hard. And that's another study that somebody did, I believe in Scotland in 2008, where they recorded people doing Om meditation and recorded their heartbeats, pulses. They did before and after, how it feels and things like that. So take that for what you will. And that leads me to prana. I hope that the trend is pretty clear. I'm doing my best to draw pretty abstract concepts from widespread religions and spiritualities and kind of give them some scientific backing to let you know that these things which are transcendent and seemingly ethereal still have a material measurability and all come from essentially the same source, and the same source that perhaps we come from. So prana, another word stemming from Hinduism and Sanskrit, is cosmic energy or life force, and it has to do a lot with the breath. And when people think of breath, that can go in multiple directions. However, in America or Euro-American minds, I believe, or I would observe that breath is pretty synonymous with science and the lungs, and it's all pretty cut and dry into what it means and what it does for us. But for all of recorded history, prana, or breathing, has been seen as a gateway or an access to that transcendental realm, or a way to aid meditation and grow our practice and make us better cultivators, as my Shifu says. So when we see that picture right there, he's doing a mudra, which is a hand position, and he's doing one like this. You can do alternate nostril breathing, which looks real fun. But it's a very, very kind of maybe silly thing in our kind of stereotypical world, but it's something that's been done for centuries by people from all walks of life. And someone else in Europe was so interested in the effects of prana that they began testing the heart rate as well when doing different breath control exercises. And obviously when you hold your breath, you can see pretty jump in the heart rate because you're not getting any oxygen. Your body's like, whoa. But when you release the hold, the graph kind of cuts off, but when you release the hold, it not only goes back to a healthier equilibrium, but the gaps between your heart rate are just a little bit more full, if that makes sense. The study is kind of hard to confuse, but you can look it up there. The important thing about this study was that it was done outside, and that ties in the whole relationship with nature part of it. So yeah, I was really trying to, with this slide, express the ancient techniques of pranayama, coupled with the new curiosity that our generation and our culture is embedding into the ancient practice. So, awesome. The word microcosm is pretty important, I feel like, for this topic and for me and my journey into mindfulness. I have a quote. Sorry. No, I don't. That's okay. Essentially, a book that I read within my monastery that I attend was comparing the geological systems of Earth to the biological systems within a human being. And it was asking, if we will, to, for a second, compare ourselves and our electrical, because human beings, obviously, there is neurons firing constantly, and that electricity, that energy inside of us, and the book was asking if we mirror that to the core of the planet in which we reside. And remember that within the layers that there is an energy that gives life to the trillions of cells within your body. And I know that these topics are pretty hard maybe to grasp because it took me a long time and it's not over yet. There's a lot to go, a lot for me to learn. But I think that it's important just to expose ourselves to the illusions and poetic kind of metaphors that the systems right outside our door inspire, I guess, within us. So, yeah, our systems, digestive, nervous, chemical systems within our body mirror kind of the different geological systems happening on our planet, like the water system, different things like that that are eluding me. But yeah. Okay, cool. So, yes, I hope that it was clear that we are definitely in unison with our environment, and that there's been multiple scientific studies that are trying to express better than I the connection that is very evident from the world in which we live and everything we use comes from. Our emotional, mental, and physical health rely on our relationship with each other and our environment. So I believe it is in my best interest, all of our best interests, if we not only continue to pursue mindfulness, but maybe take it outside as much as we can. To remember that indoor life wasn't always so for our species. So now that you gain that awareness, what will you do? Made me excited. And that's my presentation.
Any question for her?
Any question?
You mentioned that you see people wearing like jewelry or tattoos with the Om on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like because people wear it like almost like pretty openly nowadays in
Right.
the society, that they take it as seriously?
Right. I think yes and no. I would say no, mostly, because I mean there comes a danger when you commodify or cheapen something that's supposed to give you intrinsic meaning that no one can take away. However, spreading awareness is the most important thing, and there is no such thing, right, as bad publicity. So like, even if I see someone who has no idea what the symbol means, you know, tattooed on their body or something, just as a fad or whatever, it still does my heart some good to know that that symbol is surviving, and it has, you know, and it's gonna spread the message and resonate with people who are willing to take it in a grander context than just the vessel wearing it. So, thank you for asking. Any questions?
So, I read some of your expression about meditation. If you like to share with your friends here how it impact in your life.
Yeah, no problem. A couple years ago, that was really hard. So I had, or still kind of have, anxiety, bipolar, depression, a lot of things like that. PTSD from some things I experienced as a child. And so I was kind of unable to communicate deeper truths that I felt like I was experiencing. And, you know, just be a little frozen when trying to even grasp larger concepts that I felt like I was being called to, in a way, if that makes any sense. And so meditation kind of gave me an outlet to not be at anyone's expectation, but just be. And I think that in, I keep saying Euro-American,